Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Harsh Reality. For those who don't know who I am, it's me, myself, Harsh Med. Now, Hollywood can obviously be, as horrible as that whole industry is, pedoing and whatever. Some of the pop culture references from Hollywood can be rather entertaining. For example, my co-host at CSHR Radio, Scott Sonnier, looks like Bowser. A close friend of mine, Robert Walker, looks like Barry Manilow. It's so nice to get myself twice. And and our guy HiEnd HoBeaux uses all sorts of Hollywood memes for the sake of our face on Hollywood memes for the sake of his pop culture references from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, which are Hollywood based. So that's fun. But what's not so fun is when people assume that life is like Hollywood. It's not. And I remember having a discussion with this a few hours ago. With my aunt a few hours ago about how law enforcement arrest pedophiles and all that. You don't think they do? I'll ask you to every cop and police officer, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting here like, that's not how that works. We literally have cases of people who are pedophiles, known pedophiles, never spent a day in jail for those crimes. Part of it is because they were snitches. Part of it was because they had mommy and daddy's money to get away with whatever they wanted to get away with. Another part is because law enforcement is kind of incompetent. Don't believe me? I can tell you the names of two random people that really aren't much of anything except known pedophiles. And that would be Brian William Johnson, who never spent a day in jail even though he was a notorious child groomer. And people reported him numerous times to his local police department in Sistersville, West Virginia. No, he got to die in the comfort of his own home, eating food and doing drugs. And of course you have Patrick Joseph Cox, who is known as Trick, who also is a notorious pedophile. A notorious pedophile who has distributed CP on the dark, child pornography on the dark web. He's been reported numerous times to his local police department in North Charleston, South Carolina, and of course nothing has ever occurred because of that. So my question is, and those two people are just relatively, well-off white suburbanites. They're not anything special. They're not Hollywood. They're not this or the other. They're just there. They're just there. But my question is, why is it that people are very gullible and naive about these topics? Why? It's one thing for people who aren't in these circles to not understand how law enforcement works. But it's another thing for people who call themselves truthers, researchers, critical thinkers, whatever, to not understand the same concept. And the problem is, and the reason that's the problem, is because they're supposed to know better. If you know better, you're supposed to do better. And if you're gonna do better, they gotta be better. And if you're gonna have all that knowledge and just be like your random, run-of-the-mill indoctrinated normie, then you're defeating the whole purpose of having any knowledge. So, I just wanted to say that. And speaking of Hollywood plots, the Lewiston shooting in Maine. You feel bad for the people who suffered in that situation. But you also realize, like every other shooting, it seems to have the same fucking script. The man who shot was a troubled... I mean, the only thing that really changed in the script was the fact that he was middle-aged instead of a teenager. And he checked himself into a facility instead of just being on a bunch of pills. But other than that, the story was basically the same. Mentally unstable Caucasian, flagged by law enforcement. No one did a damn thing. But had access to guns he wasn't supposed to have access to, and shot up a bunch of people. So, there and killed a bunch of people. So where's the difference in the story? There is none. You know, the only twists and turns in any of these mass shootings are like the backgrounds of the families or the backgrounds of the person. But other than that, it's the same plot. Mentally unstable Caucasian, law enforcement notified, nothing is done, and the guy and a bunch of people are dead. So. So, that's it. I mean, there's really nothing else to say about a situation like that. But the one thing I did, what I was thinking about, since it was in that same area, but it wasn't exactly the same area, was the Sandy Hook shooting. My question with that is, if it wasn't a false flag, if it wasn't a hoax, like, if it was, like, just some real, like, one-off when it came to a shooting, then what the hell were their families involved in? What the hell were their families involved in to where their children keep getting targeted? I don't get it. I mean, if it's a hoax, it's like, okay, whatever, then it doesn't matter. You know. But if it really happened, then why the hell do their children keep getting targeted? Because you had the Sandy Hook shooting. Then 6 months later, they're getting the ones who survived. It got blown. You know, they were being targeted again at the marathon bombings. And then 9 years after that, you know, one of their own who started who was a part of the Sandy Hook like commercials back in the day, Gabby Petito, gets murdered. What the hell is going on there? What are those people? Well, there's something is off about that entire situation. That's neither here nor there. And I don't get it. I don't get the whole situation. But you know what? Then again, we live in a world where supposed truthers, critical thinkers, researchers can be lied to on a daily basis by their favorite live streamers and not really care. Not really care. It's the same old thing. And another thing I've noticed is I do find it odd that so many people are against religion, against God, and all this other stuff, and yet somehow seem to treat their favorite online personalities and their favorite live streamers as symbols of God, like godlike figures. It's very weird. Or the people who don't believe in God, but yet somehow, like I think Mike Seidel said it best. You know, to paraphrase him, it's interesting how some of these live streamers, they don't believe in God, but yet they want to feel persecuted like they're Jesus Christ. I miss that guy. He was smart. So, it's rather interesting. But it's kind of weird. People often become who they rail against. You know, I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying not to fall into that same gap. And the reason I criticize the truthers, the critical thinkers, and researchers is they're supposed to know better. They're supposed to be smarter. You know. Robert says we need to call Mike sometime. Absolutely. Like they're supposed to be smarter people than the normies they make fun of and belittle. You know, as much as I love Danielle St. John and the great work she does, you know, it is kind of weird how she always yells at normies for being retarded. And I'm just like, well, yeah, they are normies. What do you expect? Yelling at normies for being idiots is kind of like getting into an argument with someone who's yelling at a tree. Like, I don't get it. But no, she does great work when it comes to pedogate and all that, and that's kind of the reason some of the last two live streams have been brought up, because I keep thinking of those old live streams we did together about these topics, and I'm just like, what the hell happened to people? I don't know. The whole situation's rather strange, but what can you do at this point? What can you do? What I don't understand is how people can just be so. Well, they want to be martyrs, but they don't want to pay the price. Everyone wants to be a martyr, but they don't want to pay the price of being. Newsflash. I won't mention any names. Well, maybe someone like Matt Burrell. I don't know. If you get to live off the government, and you get to freeload off your baby mama, you're not a martyr. You're not a martyr. You're not. You're not. You're not a martyr. Okay? Bill Cooper, that was a martyr. Guys like Bill Cooper do not get shot and killed in front of their own home by law enforcement unless they're doing some things. You know. Rachel Corrie, that was a martyr. That was someone who was fighting the good fight. She literally got killed by Israeli tanks because she was trying to raise awareness for what was happening in Palestine. That's a martyr. The people, crying about censorship and all this other stuff, you're not a martyr. Okay? Hell, you ain't even at the level of Debbie, let alone like the level of the other two I mentioned. Like, no, just stop. Shit, I mean, Debbie was followed, R.I.P. St. Progressive. She was followed all the time when she was doing live streams. That's where she quit, and I didn't blame her for that. It's like, why tolerate all the bullshit if you ain't gonna deal with any of the benefits? So, yeah, this whole, if you can't criticize public figures, then you do not believe in freedom of speech. Then you don't believe in freedom of speech. If you want to live in a world where we can't criticize public figures, then just move to a country, just move to a dictatorship where you can't criticize people. Just move to. And if you want to practice that level of idolatry and worship, then go into politics. Go be in politics. Join your favorite politician. And talk about certain things. Go ahead. And just worship the people you're following. But, I don't know, these people are idiots. I'm really getting tired of it at this point. Just, like, you have the right to believe what you want. You have the right to do what you want. If you want to be a delusional retard, that's fine. But you don't have the right to force everyone else to go along with your delusional retardation. You don't have that right. You have the right to do what you want, but you don't have the right to violate other people's rights in the process. And unfortunately, people just don't seem to understand that. But this is what happens when you think real life is like Hollywood. You just lose all sense of reality. And on that note, this has been another edition of The Harsh Reality. This is Harshman signing up. I love you. The life is harsh, must live it. And tune in tonight when Scott Bowser Sonnier joins me to talk about the headlines. Should be at 8 Central. Maybe we might push it to 7 Central. I don't know. Should be around then. So take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. And remember, life is harsh, but so live it. And sometimes you want to color outside the lines. Take care and a great rest of your week.